Well, good Saturday morning, guys. Welcome to another fantabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. Hey, I'm your host. That is me, Colin J. Millett, broker and owner of Exit Realty Low Country Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, if you are just tuning in for the very first time to this show, you are in for a treat because our mission here, guys, is very simple. Y'all heard it before. Y'all going to get it again now. That is to empower our community through financial literacy and real estate education, guys. We are legacy building. That is what we do. So, guys, today's episode is going to be chock full of excitement and energy. Look here, guys. Every now and again, guys, we have to go climb a mountain to locate the tip top, if you will. Take that off the mountain and bring that down, if you quote unquote will, to the people. And guys, look, I'm very, very honored and esteemed to have with us not only a local leader in the real estate industry, but a state and national leader in the real estate industry as well with me today. And that's none other than David Kent with the Real Buyer's Agent. David, how are you doing this morning?
Man, I am doing great. I just lucky to live in the low country and be in the real estate business, and lucky to be on your show this morning. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, look here, I really, really appreciate it. So, David, you are a pioneer in our industry. All right. So I want to be fair, and I want to be, and most importantly, I want to use this opportunity to educate our consumers on what you do that's unique. Because you, again, were the guy that started something that we all know and quote unquote love in the real estate practice, which is a representation of buyers. So if you don't mind, tell listeners a little bit about yourself, but then also, if you don't mind, touch on what inspired you to do what you've done.
So I moved to Charleston in Mount Pleasant in 1985 after I graduated from Clemson. I was from two small towns, kind of like you. I was in Bennettsville, South Carolina for high school, and I was in Cary, North Carolina when I was in elementary school and middle school. And Cary is big now, but it was small back then. And so I went to Clemson, a small town, but I had a college classmate who lived in the old village of Mount Pleasant, and decided to come down one spring break and visit him, and said, this is where I want to live. This is where I want to set my roots. My degree is in construction management.
Okay.
So that's why I started out. I went knocking door to door because I didn't have a job, and started working for a local building company. And I built a last phase, of Linkside out in Dunes, Wild Dunes. And then I started doing land development. I was in charge of Hopcaw Creek Plantation, Chelsea Park, Hopcaw Professional Center. And then I worked for another developer, worked on Long Point subdivision. I did Whitehall up in North Charleston, the Enclave at Kiowa. So kind of got my feet all wet in building and land development, and eventually went out on my own in the building business, and started building houses. And so I built houses all over the place, in James Island, Mount Pleasant, and downtown did a project called Menotti Street. And at the time, people were asking me to help them buy a house because I had a real estate company, and buyer agency was not really even on the radar yet. So I started researching it and said, why aren't people representing buyers? Because they kind of need a lot of help, especially trying to find their home. And that's what led me to this company. And I opened it up with a former business partner, C. Strickland, back in 95. And so kind of transitioned out of the building business in about 2003, but have been focusing exclusively on buyer agency since 95. So that's a little about me. I'm married, been married since 1993. My wife, Manu, is a first grade school teacher in Mount Pleasant. And I have two daughters grown now out of the house, and one lives in Baltimore and the other one lives in New York City, and had them home for the weekend for Easter, which was nice. And
Awesome.
Now it's back to a quiet house, just me, my wife, and my dog, Maisie.
Well, shout out to Manu. She is a sweetheart. And we always have a running joke, usually in the real estate business, in regards to spouses of real estate agents. God bless you.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So she is a sweetheart.
Thank you.
Just want to kind of jump in. So for our listeners, guys, buyer agency is buyer representation. So, David, you work exclusively with buyers. You don't do anything as it relates to sellers, and there's a reason for that. And if you don't mind, kind of touch on that. What brought you to that? Why why did you recognize the need, but define the need, and then why did you decide to take it on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, on every transaction, you got a buyer and a seller. And my background, because it was in building and land development, was it lend itself to helping buyers because I understand how houses are put together. I understand. I look for problems. I look for, when we're out looking at a house and they go, "What is that over there?" And I go, "Well, that's a lift station for the sewer system." I mean, I understand all that. And so I felt like that if I was going to do buyer agency, I didn't want to have to worry about whether I myself or our company had listings that would be a conflict. So I said, okay, let's just go buyer agency 100%. And I really enjoy working with buyers. They're really it's very satisfying because, as you know, Corwin, I mean, you take these buyers and it's a journey they go through on trying to find their house and trying to figure out where they want to be, and it's can be very stressful. So that's our job, is to try to make it as less stressful as possible, and then help them understand the risk they're involved in buying and the rewards. So, you have to know both of them to really find the right house. And so I felt like with my background in construction and land development, I can help them understand those risks, but also understand that maybe they're not as big as they thought they would be. We go through that process and we have to pivot sometime. We start out over here and we end up over here, or we change parameters or whatever. But that has been my goal, is to just to help them find the right house at the right price in the right condition.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. So, for our listeners, we hear Hall of Fame, we think, look, you're at the top. I mean, the tip top. So, David, you are Hall of Fame. I mean, REBAC is Real Estate Buyer Advisory Council, which is a organization within the real estate industry that essentially specializes in training agents and providing resources for agents that exclusively work with buyers, many so exclusively. And you are again a Hall of Fame member. Thank you, one, for being a trailblazer and a pioneer for doing what you're doing, which is to work exclusively with one subset, if you will, within the industry. So again, thank you so much for that. But you are also an RPAC Hall of Fame, about am I correct?
That's great.
So many times people miss the correlation between politics, and we don't want to go too far, but we want to be specific to the politics in real estate. What does that look like? And the reason why you are so much so an advocate for being engaged in that little piece, if you will, of politics that relates specifically to real estate and the real estate consumer. So you've been an RPAC Hall of Famer now for a while, correct?
Couple years, yeah, yep, yep. So
All
I got
right.
it in, I think, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because, as you know, we have to invest in our business. And the beauty of RPAC, which is our political arm for the realtors, is that mission is just to support and make sure the housing industry doesn't have any harm done to it. Okay. So we are on the right, we're on the left, we're really in the middle. We're in a purple color. So it is really not controversial. When we go talk to our representatives and explain our positions, we're coming with a background of a 1.3 million real estate agents out there supporting us. And so it really is easy to be a part of RPAC. We just want to make sure our representatives understand the real estate industry and what harm could be done if they start changing. A big example, back when they had the tax cuts under President Trump, 1031 like kind exchange was on the table. And so Michael Sally, who is good friends with Senator Tim Scott, said, "Listen, this is a big problem. This is how a lot of people buy and sell property and not have to pay taxes or defer taxes down the road." And because of that relationship, because he was a realtor, because of the relationship with Senator Scott, we're able to pull that out of the tax cuts. And so we're always trying to make sure our representatives understand the harm that can be done if they can change things with the tax codes as regards to real estate. Having someone's home should be the primary focus for us. And in our real estate industry, that's what we do. We try to make sure that people are able to buy a home. Fannie and Freddie and VA loans and so forth. All those are there to help the first time home buyer buy a home
Mhm.
because it's a way for them to accumulate wealth. And that's part of your financial literacy part of your program. And I think that's awesome because I will tell you, when I moved from Cary, North Carolina to Bennettsville, South Carolina, my dad decided to keep his house up there. And it was a modest house. It was a 3 bedroom, 1 bath house. And my dad was a tool and die maker. My mom was a bookkeeper. We moved to Bennettsville. He kept that house. And we moved to Bennettsville. And eventually my dad bought a house there. Well, it was time for myself and my sister to go to college. And he was able to sell that house. And I was able to go to college basically debt free. I had a small debt that I had to do that. It was because he saw the value of real estate and was able to use that asset to grow while we were moving to another area and then sold that and helped me go to college. And I've done the same thing. Although I have rental properties, I didn't use it to fund my daughter's education, but I knew it was always there if I needed to because it is an asset that people should really take advantage of and try to accumulate and diversify their portfolio. You got your stocks and your bonds, you got IRAs, 401k. You need to have a rental property that can grow with you. It takes a little effort. I mean, once you have it, you just got to maintain it a little bit and it can grow, and you don't have to do a whole lot to it.
So, interesting you should touch on that. One of the things that, matter of fact, I just had this conversation within the last, little bit with one of my family members. We're talking about investing and all that stuff. And one of the things that I brought up in the conversation is, we should look to, as best as possible, invest in things that quote unquote, ain't being made no more. God ain't making no more dirt. He's out of the dirt making business. That was a
Right.
conversation that I had with him. We're not doing that anymore. So purchasing, property, land, houses that are on land, obviously, but those kind of things set you up to be able to do what you're talking about. And even still, I'm gonna go back a little bit further about, what advocacy does within the real estate space. You talked about the 1031. It's also referred to as a Starker exchange as well. One of our agents here teaches this and trains our agents on it. I mean, it's a great investment tool to help people to maneuver and position themselves to win by deferring taxes to a point in time in the future on the sale of real property where they don't have to pay at the same rate, deferring until a retirement age. That is huge. So, David, look, this is the perfect place. You know what you're doing, and we want to make sure that people know about you. So, this is the perfect place to drop your contact information right here before we take a little brief break. So, David, how can people reach you for more information?
My website is www.charlestonhome.com. And my phone number is 843-606-0824. So call me or go to my website, one of the two.
Awesome, awesome. Well, David, look, we're gonna take a quick pause. We're gonna jump right back in. I'm gonna continue this conversation for our listeners, guys. David just dropped his information, and look, look here, he did one of my moves, guys. He dropped that cell phone number. So y'all make sure y'all holler at him, give him a shout, message him, or what have you, to get in contact with him, get more information. Guys, you're listening to Exit Strategies Radio Show. Y'all hold tight, y'all flip that flapjack, and we're gonna be right back. Congratulations to our Realtor of the Week, none other than Christopher Williams. You can reach Chris by dialing 803-468-9332 or text K Williams, that is KWILLMS, to 85377. Again, to 85377. Y'all give Chris a holler now. And guys, we are back. Second segment, Exit Strategies Radio Show. I am your host. Yes, that is me, Colin J. Millette, broker and owner of Exit Realty Low Country Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, we are extra honored today to have with us David Kent, yes, the real, that's a word, real buyer's agent with us today, guys. He's sharing, what brought him into real estate, what also caused him to dedicate his real estate profession to serving buyers exclusively, all right, exclusively. But then also what has him engaged outside of that? Because real estate is a lot broader, guys, than just the purchase or the sale of a home. It is about changing lives, it is about helping people to define their future by creating opportunities. So, David, thank you so much again for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So, before the break, we're kind of doing this, talking a little bit about quote unquote the real estate political arm. And guys, look, if y'all missed that part, y'all need to go back and listen. And you'll note that there was not a specific reference to anything other than serving real estate consumers. All right. That's what we focus on. That's where we are. So, David, tell our listeners or give some insight into the market. I mean, you've been doing this. How, if you don't mind, you've been a real estate professional here in Greater Charleston markets for a while.
I literally got my license when I was in college. I didn't really use it much until I started this company in '95, but I was doing a little bit before that point in time. So a long time, Corwin. I got a lot of gray hairs that are from that.
Look here, I can relate. I get you. I get it. So you've seen markets ebb and flow, and I was very fortunate to have a previous guest on, Kevin Chisholm, with Boykin Real Estate a few weeks ago, and we had this joke running that there's a song that said heard it all before, so we had this joke running, but you've been in the market for a while, so you've seen interest rates climb, you've seen them decline, you've seen them climb again, you've seen market crashes. I think probably a couple, two, three of those. So if you don't mind, I mean, your perspective in light of all of that may be different, probably is different than many.
Mhm.
So you're talking to a buyer, buyer contacts you wanting to purchase a home, and they start, this, because everybody's giving this spiel, they think the market's going to crash tomorrow, and they just regurgitating what everybody is saying to them. What are you telling them?
Well, the first question is how long are they going to hold the property, right? Is
Okay.
it a year? Is it 2 years? And then the next conversation is about the market. And the question that the next conversation is, what is the market going to do? And we don't know. I do think we track, and we all track, is the number of listings and the velocity of houses going under contract. And we're hovering right around 1,000 listings in the Tri-County area, which is not a lot of houses. Prior to COVID, we we're 5,500. So we're down to low inventory. And so prices are going to continue to go up. They're going to continue to go up until supply starts to catch up with the demand. And no one knows that. I mean, we don't know if it's going to be another 2 years or 3 years before it slows down. But in the national terms, we're about 500,000 housing starts off every year. We're behind the eight ball. So I don't know what we're going to do to catch up. I happen to sit on the Charleston County Planning Commission. And so I think we have to figure out a way to be more creative when it comes to zoning. And that is a very, very touchy situation when you start to talk about changing zoning and possibly having more density. But I think condos, I think townhouses would certainly help the first time home buyers get in the market more affordable. But getting back to your question, is I always talk about how long I think their horizon is. If it's 1 or 2 years, they may not want to get in right now. They may want to wait. If it's 5 or 10 years, absolutely get in, because markets ebbs and flows. And I always tell people real estate is really a long-term investment. Yes, we're going to have those periods of time where you can make money in a year or two and be very set. But in general, real estate's a long-term investment. And I always try to preach that to them. The rates are relatively low. They're still fairly low compared to history. So you get in today, and if you can hold out through a down period, you're generally pretty good. I mean, if you can get through the next time there's a slowdown or whatever, and you can get through that, and if you have to move away, rent the house out, whatever it takes to get through that down period, it's going to come back. I mean, I look at my first house I bought in Chelsea Park for $83,000. And today it's probably a $450,000 house. And I know what Corwin's saying is, David, why did you sell that house? Well, you're right. I wish I'd held on to it, but I didn't, because I needed to buy the next house. But if I was, forward thinking, maybe that was the thing to do. Maybe that was a strategy, is to hold on to that house and maybe not buy the same house I bought after that.
Well, one of the things, I say this, often, we don't have a crystal ball when it comes to it. We have the history, we have the historical data to go back and reference, and then in turn to make a judgment based upon that historical data as to what we perceive is probable in the future. Not, probable, possible, two different things, but what's probable, what probably will happen going forward. And that's what we act off of. We always look at when people look at a rate increase, they always think that's the basement and they always trying to go up. So, what happens is they always want to be in the basement when it's low, but they always want to be on the roof when it's high. So when rates are high, obviously everybody's looking for rates to come lower. But when rates are low, then well, excuse me, rephrase that, it's actually the backwards. When rates are, low, people don't want them to go up, but when rates are high, they want them to come down. And to be frank about it, we are far from what rates used to be. We're far from it. So the complaint, the gripe now, rates are not where they were, but if you didn't take advantage of it then you have no choice but to do it now because as home prices continue to increase, you can't rebuy the house. Whatever price you get it at, that's it. But
Correct.
a rate lowers, then you can obviously reposition yourself. So that's been an ongoing dialogue and conversation that I've been having. So, buyers are definitely challenged in this market, but I think you agree that we see a lot of opportunity. We still see people purchasing homes regularly. We're still, moving as much, if you will, inventory, even though it's not visible. The store, if something goes on the shelf, somebody's taking it right off. But every time you put something on the shelf, it's going, so to speak.
Right.
So
Right.
that's fairly consistent with you and your guys, your team.
Yes. I mean, I would say every house and that I can think of, we've had multiple offers on that my buyers have made an offer on. There's been multiple offers, and that always is a challenge to try to figure out what's the best solution or how do you win that offer. And that's a long conversation you have with your client. Price is one thing. Can you remove contingencies is the other. What is the seller looking for? Do they want to stay in the house and rent back for 30 days, or what? You just got to find out that, and then just put your best foot forward. And I tell my clients all the time, I said, you can't bet against yourself. You really can put your best foot forward and let it lie, because you don't know what the others offers are. If we can try to find out, we will, but most of the time we don't get a chance to know what they are. So put your best foot forward, and then so far I've got every client that I've worked with a house. So eventually we get them a house.
Well, it's about attitude, the right attitude. And you touched on something in there that many of our listeners don't understand that, in a multiple offer situation, you typically have no idea what other parties who may be bidding on the property may be bidding. I mean, technically there's no way to discover that information unless by chance the other party, reveals it. But typically they're not going to because obviously they want to leverage themselves for the best situation or quote unquote a win for them. But in order for real estate to work, it has to be a win-win. Everybody has to win. If that's not the case, then it's not going to be a good deal. So, David, so while we're together, what is it, if there's anything that you want to get voiced out there for consumers, but also for agents to know during this time? Again, you're a veteran in the industry, very well respected. I love you, and
I do
and
too.
with that, we see things from a different perspective. You see things that other agents, myself included, may not see, and then vice versa. But on the platform, what do you think consumers need to know? And then also, what do you think agents need to know moving forward?
Well, I think consumers need to understand how hard we work for them. And most of our job is done behind the scenes. We do a lot of research on the houses, or we're trying to find the right property to make an offer on, trying to find out the problems are. And so it's not just that one transaction. We are with them throughout the whole process and help them understand the market, help them understand what it takes to buy the house, help them understand the contracts and so forth. So we work really hard for what we do. And I think agents have to understand that coming into this business, that it's a very hard business to be in. It's a very competitive business, but your knowledge is what's going to separate you. And the more knowledge you bring to the table to bring to your buyers and your sellers, the better off you're going to be, because it is a this market is always ebbing and flowing, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, trying to see what the hot buttons are, hot buttons for your clients. So, some clients are very risk averse and they probably need to be going more new construction. And some clients are okay with, let's go in there and knock down walls, and that's fine with me. We'll put down new carpet. So it's
Right.
all about what your client wants and trying to figure out what the best strategy is. And so I think that if I take away one thing would be just making sure they understand how hard we work for them and what it takes to be a real estate agent, a realtor.
Well, I appreciate that. David, one more time for our listeners, how can people get in contact with you?
My website is charlestonhome.com, and my phone number is 843-606-0824.
Awesome. Awesome. David, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today. For our listeners, David Kent, remember the real, yes, those two, the real buyer's agent, guys, with us today, sharing his insight, his knowledge. I mean, he again is a pioneer within our industry, and most importantly, he is an advocate for buyer representation. In turn, does a phenomenal job representing buyers in the purchase of real estate. Note I said purchase, not sale. He don't sell them; he just help you buy 'em. That way,
Absolutely.
you know who is in your corner. So, guys, look, thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Trustfully, you got a lot out of this. Please reach out to David with any questions, guys, that you may have. If you're thinking about starting a career in real estate, David touched on some very, very, very important things. One, understand, know, learn if you must, so you can understand, so that way you can assist and help consumers and do this thing, quote unquote, the right way. Again, David, thanks so much for your time today. For our listeners, you know what I always tell you: we love you, we love you, we love you, and we're gonna see you guys out there in those streets.